Time to play the game. Time to play the game. It's all about the game and how you play it. All about control, and if you can take it, all about your debt. And if you can pay it, it's all about pay. And who's gonna make it? I am the game, you don't wanna play me. I am control, no way you can shake me. I am heavy debt, no way you can pay me. I am the pain, and I know you can't take me. Look over your shoulder, ready to run like a Cleveland bitch from a smoking gun. I am the game, and I make the rules. So move on out, you can die like a fool. Trying to figure out what my move's gonna be. Come on over, sucker, why don't you ask me? Don't you forget there's a price you can pay. 'Cause I am the game and I want to play. Time to play the game.
Hello everyone, welcome to Jaguar Chikdal, and today we are going to be looking at a new series that I started. It's called Playing the Spec Game. So we're going to be looking at books that I believe are going to be good books to kind of invest in or kind of look forward into the future. Again, these are going to be my personal opinions, so as a wise man once said, don't spend your rent money. All right, so we're going to be showing one book at a time, and we're just going to be talking about it, you know, just kind of what makes this book a very good bet. So we're going to start off with probably what I think is the best bet in modern books. There you go. This is Ultimate Fallout number 4, the first appearance of Miles Morales. All right. So this is a really cool book. I think back in the early 2000s, we had a new series of Spider-Man get rebooted called Ultimate Spider-Man. So this is a series that kind of condensed all the best parts of Spider-Man, and it just kind of squished them together into a new, more modern take on Spider-Man. So towards the end of that run, or should I say the end of that run as Ultimate Fallout, Peter Parker from the Ultimate Universe dies, right? And in his place comes Miles Morales. Miles Morales takes the place of Peter Parker. All right, so this was kind of a big deal because I wasn't reading comics when this came out, which was back in like 2011. But this did make my radar, right? Because there was a big hoopla about people saying that, you know, Peter Parker shouldn't be replaced and all this nonsense or whatever. But that's, you know, that's just any kind of fandom. You're gonna have people Peter Parker, and you're gonna have people who are Miles Morales, right? But Miles Morales is a more modern take on Spider-Man. So we've already kind of seen the things that this book has got for going for it, right? One of the things is from, I think, a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, we saw the Ultimate Fallout. We saw the Edge of Spider-Verse come into play, right? And it was a good movie. It was a hit, and that was just kind of Sony and Marvel kind of dipping their toes in some of that Miles Morales juice. You know what I'm saying? They're kind of testing the waters, see where this character is going to be taken off. And I believe that you're already going to see this character, right? Because Marvel, I don't see the Marvel Universe MCU being rebooted. I don't think that that's going to be the strategy that they're going to be doing. I think it's going to be more like comics where they kind of like reboot it or do soft reboots or something. Whether it's like a time change, Flashpoint type events or whatever. And I think that eventually Miles Morales is going to come. Miles Morales is like quintessential New York, right? It's just a geeky kid. I believe he's from Brooklyn, right? Brooklyn's like all about New York, right? And you got this kid. He's half Latino, half black. And, you know, I think when I started reading this, he was a bit too young for me to relate with the character. But I feel a lot of the younger generation does relate to him. One of the things I like to do when I go to comic book shops is I like to kind of see what the younger people are reading. And that's where I'm coming from with this, right? This is kind of a long-term play. I'm talking about 10, 15, 20 years and beyond. Because I like to spark up conversations with kids, you know, like, you know, younger teenagers who are reading comic books. Of course, there's some things that you need to kind of be a comic book collector at the level that, you know, a lot of people on here in the YouTube community are collecting. And that is one, you need disposable income because these books can get pretty pricey, right? And usually people don't really get settled in and economically until they're around 30. So you notice that a lot of collectors have either been doing it for a very long time or just recently started getting into it and they're already out there past 30 years old. So it's more difficult for the younger people to kind of jump into the comic books back in the 70s and 60s and work their way up, right? Because one of the driving things of comic books is nostalgia. So I feel that Miles Morales is going to have that nostalgia feeling for younger readers in the 15, 20 years from now. So Miles Morales is a popular character that I think younger generations who do still read comic books are picking up. But I feel like a lot of the younger generations are picking it up more digitally instead of, making their way to the shop, right? Because it is more expensive once you get to the shop. And, as we all know, comic books are a very dangerous hobby because they're so relatively cheap and there's so many of them, right? So they can add up over time. But that's besides the point. So yeah, this is a character. So now we're going to be looking at some of the stats. Wait, but before we do that, before we look at some of the stats, we're gonna. I just want to mention that this is also a twofer because this is also the first appearance of Reed Richards from the Ultimate Universe, also known as the Maker. And even though it's not noted up here on CGC, he has seemed to come into a more prominent role in Marvel Comics. He made his appearance again here in Donny Cates' Venom run that he's currently doing. And also he played a part in the Absolute Carnage storyline that was considered by many one of the best stories of 2019. So, let's look at the stats. All right, so I'm going to be looking at the census for CGC, and this is as of, what is it, January 10th. This is accurate, right? So I'm looking at 9.8s. 9.8s are about 1,400 altogether. That includes 133 signature series. So there's not a whole lot of them out there. You got to take this in consideration. Like, this is not like ASM or Hulk 181, right? And I feel because a lot of it has to do with because when this book was released, or it was originally released in a poly bag, the poly bag has kind of a flap on it where the plastic was sealed, so that the crease, it made the plastic crease kind of made an indentation on the book all the way through the bottom. And that was one of the big issues for this book, and that's why it's a little bit more harder to find in the 9.8 than normal books that you find off the rack. So you can get a polybag book, right? And it could be perfect. Everything else could be nice crease corners. The spine is looking sweet. Everything's great. But if it's polybag, you can bet that this got going to have a crease through it. So a lot of collectors or speculators are shying away from spending the extra moolah to get this book signed, where they feel they can get most of their bang to the buck, just raw copies. So there possibly is a whole lot of raw copies out there, but there just aren't that many that are going to be in the 9.8. 9.8s usually hover around 350, 360, 370, up in that range right now as of today. And I'm going based on recent sales off eBay because I think that's kind of like the tip, right? You can probably find cheaper copies if you go off the beaten path and you find one on Instagram, find one on Facebook or YouTube. But this is kind of like the top of the top, right? So, all right, so that's 9.8. So it's still a relatively cheap book. 350 is not too bad, considering that this is a book that was considered back in 2011, right? So next one is going to be a 9.6. It's only 11. There's only 1,100 copies out there, roughly, right? If you get the book in a poly bag, you cut it out. You can look at it. The one I have had an indentation all the way through the pages. So I was kind of thinking I was going to get 9 because everything else was good. I was hoping to get a 9.2, and then after a press, I was hoping to get a 9.4. I was lucky enough to get it back at 9.6. So I feel like this book does have potential, and as the book gets a little bit hotter, I wouldn't be surprised if you started seeing a whole lot more CGCs graded. They just probably not going to be a whole bunch more 9.8s showing up. At least not. You're probably going to be seeing in a proportion that you see here, where you have kind of an even. So you got like 1200, 1300, 14. So you got about 1400 9.8s, and you got about 1200 9.6. So that's kind of like they're kind of head and head, right? Normally, if you start looking at some other books, especially more modern books, they're top heavy. A lot of 9.8s, right? Because a lot of collectors, a lot of speculators, they won't submit a book unless they know it's a solid 9.8. And but this one, I think, as time goes by, it's probably going to be slabbed a lot more often, regardless of what the grade is. I do want to show you guys a panel of Miles Morales when he takes off the mask and it is revealed that it's not actually Peter Parker underneath the mask. So, yeah, man, that is going to be it for this first video, right? So we start off with this nice one, right? I think that this is probably the book with the most potential in modern era. I think that in the future, we will be seeing Miles Morales. Like, Miles Morales is coming, and I have no doubt in my mind that we will be seeing eventually live action Miles Morales. And I think that whether it's successful or not, or whether it's 5, 10 years from now, we haven't really crossed that bridge. I think whether it's successful or not, it's going to be kind of like how much more the book is going to be moving up. But I think it's not really going to stop it from its growth, because it already has great groundwork with the Edge of the Spider-Verse that is going to be kind of tapping into that nostalgia for kids that are growing up today. So yeah, man. So yeah, man, that's it for this video. Saying if you see Miles Morales out there, just keep in mind that that might be a cool book. I also got a couple more that I got in mind that could be some, some long-term holds. And that's it for today's video. Let me know what y'all think about Miles Morales. Y'all into him, or you guys still team Peter Parker? Let me know down in the comments down below. And with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. So let's get out the swamp. Peace.